The Octopath Traveler series started on the Nintendo Switch and had itself a sequel over there, and its third entry on consoles at least, Octopath Traveler 0, is about to release on the Nintendo Switch too. This takes some elements from the mobile game, Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent, by way of some of its gameplay mechanics. We'll get to all that in a moment. But it's also the first game in the series that allows you to create your own protagonist, as opposed to having a set hero that you begin the game with. Is this well-travelled path worth venturing down once again? Or does it have zero redeeming features? Well, thank you to Square Enix for the review code, and now let's find out. Let's start with story then, and as I mentioned, you don't have a set protagonist this time. You can create your own character at the start of the game. Once you've done this, the story revolves around the town that you grew up in, Ostera, being completely destroyed, set ablaze, by an unknown antagonist looking for a strange artifact, being some sort of ring. It comes to light that there are three main perpetrators behind the demise of your village, and this sets you on the way to three different story paths that you can change between at any time in the story, looking to go after the wealthy, the powerful, and the famous. There have been changes to this game that we'll get to more in the gameplay, but they do affect story. Things such as this time round, you can recruit characters that you'll find around the world map. They may be in taverns or houses in some of the towns, for example, and you can convince them to join your team. This means that story-wise, there isn't such a tight connection between your characters as there has been in previous Octopath Traveler games, but what completely redeems the story here is just how evil, tyrannical, demonic, sadistic the three main antagonists are. It really does touch on some quite sensitive subjects in terms of some of the things that these characters do to innocent people to emphasise just how cruel they are. And whilst the story writing itself isn't top tier by any stretch of the imagination, having that motivation to bring these characters down meant that it was the most I'd enjoyed a story in a traditional RPG for a good while. It certainly beats the more vanilla offerings that you generally get in such games. Let's move on to gameplay then, and Octopath Traveler 0 is a traditional turn-based RPG. The order of your turns once in combat is handled via a meter at the top of the screen, with speed being the defining factor here as to who goes next. And you'll have a pool of moves for each of your characters to choose from, some physical based, some magic based, special moves, etc. that you can perform to whittle your enemy's health down. Let's not get too far into that just yet though. Outside of combat, you'll be travelling across a world map, from town to town, completing a number of different objectives. As I mentioned, there are three main story paths that you can go down. You can choose which one to start from, with each one culminating in a battle against one of the three main antagonists. And the game gives you recommended levels that you should be at for any quest that you undertake. You can switch between these at any time, highlighting the one that you want to go after from an option in your menu, and pick up the other story trail whenever you want to return to it. There are of course side quests that you can partake in too, as well as a number of random battles that you'll find yourself embroiled in as you walk across the world map to each of the towns or locations featured within the game. Within towns, you can buy new equipment, rest at the inn, buy other consumables, sell any items you have, talk to the NPCs, and as I said, recruit members to join your team, both in terms of actual members that will fight for you, but you can also convince people to assist you in battle a finite number of times through the path action system, which has a success rate attached to it. You can talk to any town local, and if you befriend them, they will then assist you in battle. You can call them in when you need them, and they'll have a set skill. It could be replenishing some of your health that they'll carry out a few times before disappearing away again. The members that join you permanently though will do so after completing some sort of quest or chatting to them, etc. And you will then command these in the battle sections. You're allowed up to 8 members in your team, including your main base character, and you can only use 4 of them at any one time in battle, but instead of them being sent to some sort of reserve and you can go and take them out of this when you want them, they form the back row of your formation. So once you have a full quota of 8, or at least more than 4, you'll have your front row of 4, and these are the characters that are fighting for you, and the back row of up to 4 who you can switch in at any time. What's good about this is that the characters that are in this back row, whilst they can't compete in the combat, they do heal both HP and SP, your special points that you use for magic and what have you, a little every turn. So good use of this switching in and out system will keep your party healthy. This comes from the mobile game Champions of the Continent. As I said, there are some elements of it in here, so if you heard the word mobile at the beginning and worried, don't. It's not that this game feels like a mobile game, it's just they've taken some really good mechanics from that and implemented them into this game. Aside from this, battle is similar to any of the other Octopath games if you've played those, in that enemies have a set number of break points. This is like their shield, and you need to whittle these down by hitting the enemy with a weapon that they are vulnerable to. Once this hits 0, the enemy will be broken and you can then deal damage. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the break system. I do prefer it in RPGs where there's a bit more ebb and flow to battles, as opposed to here where you're chipping away at the enemy's break points and then wailing on them when they're in that break state. It works well enough, just a personal preference. It's not my favourite type of combat. But you also have boost points. These will build up over time, and you can use these whenever you want by pressing R to do more hits or more powerful hits when it is your character's turn. Making good use of these can see you whittle those break points down much quicker, allowing you to deal damage faster and hopefully survive some of these ordeals, because the boss battles in particular in this game can be pretty brutal at times. I must say I really do like the front-back row formation system. It's a great addition to the console versions of the game, and it adds a huge new layer of strategy to the battles. The other purpose to anyone that you recruit, a slightly more implicit reason this time round, is that these people will then move into the town of Estera, your town that was destroyed at the beginning of the game, that you are attempting to rebuild. You yourself will be picking up materials as you move across the world map, and these are used to construct buildings to house the people and repopulate the town. It's a side of the game I didn't put a huge amount of time into, but it's nice to see that it's here. Whilst nothing else in the game is mind-blowing or innovative, everything is tight and refined, meaning it only really needed another couple of tweaks to make this feel fresh, even if you've played a fair few RPGs recently, as I have in the last 6 weeks or so for review. There's a lot more that I could mention. I'm not going to go into every facet because this review will be way too long, but I will mention the job system briefly. When you start and you build that character that I mentioned, you assign them a job, and every character that you meet will also have a job class. Your classic warriors, thieves, scholars, alchemists, etc. But you can actually take on new jobs as the game goes on, and you can learn and equip job skills via the job points that you earn, as well as traditional leveling points at the end of each battle. This means that once you've unlocked a job, even if you're not particularly confident in it, you can start to unlock skills within it, even if you're not using it yet, meaning that you can strengthen it to a point you feel good using it, whilst playing as a class that you feel more comfortable with, and then switch to that class later in the game with it feeling much more ready to go for you. Gameplay is classic JRPG in a lot of ways, with just a couple of tweaks that do elevate the experience. Random battles are still a little too frequent for my liking in a modern JRPG, but on the whole, gameplay gets 18 out of 20. Controls are fine, with things like switching out characters as I mentioned, or accessing your map being just a button press away. Once you've got used to navigating the menus, everything works here just fine. They also get 18 out of 20. Moving on to visuals and performance, and Octopath Traveler 0 once again uses the 2D HD style that this series has become very well known for, and Square Enix have started to use in some of their other IPs, most notably their Dragon Quest remakes. The merge of traditional sprite-based 2D characters on 3D backgrounds looks as lovely here as it has done in every game it's been used in so far. But as I've mentioned a couple of times now with this style, it's the use of shadow and light that really brings it to life. You'll notice the rays of the sun shining through the gaps in the trees as you walk along pathways, the pixelated shadows of your characters, purposely so, projected onto walls as you walk through candlelit cabins, and the fantastic use of focus, or lack thereof, to emphasize background and foreground objects. If you look at this scene here, you'll see the trees in the foreground, a selection of trees in light and shadow in the midground, and the background obscured by that lack of focus, whilst still having enough detail to show things like particles from bonfires or glowing items in the game world. That's before you even mention the moving details such as leaves blowing in the trees or the flowers. It's quite simply stunning. The pop-up book nature of the towns as it shows you an overview when you first visit, the large sprites of the boss characters that you'll fight, it all looks fantastic. These Octopath games also benefit from having a more detailed overworld map as you travel from town to town, as opposed to games such as the Dragon Quest remakes, because they're not tied to an older game that they're trying to replicate. Performance wise, you're looking at 60 frames per second on the Switch 2. I noticed a couple of drops on rare occasions, most notably in one of the towns as you walked up some stairs to a higher level. It was nothing major, and it was just a couple of times. Moving on to the audio, and the game has that lovely orchestral feel. It has a nice mix of different styles of music to evoke a number of different emotions from you, the player. You have a hero's theme that feels significantly triumphant when it needs to. You have that melancholic style of music when it's called for, and general more melodic themes as you move through the game world. The one thing I will say about the music is there are a couple of moments, bearing in mind I've mentioned just how decadent the story can be at times, where I don't feel the music was appropriately poignant for what was actually happening on screen. Just once or twice, but again, it's a big nitpick. On the whole, the music is fantastic. Visuals are simply stunning. The only real negative I could level at the game is some repetition in terms of the enemies that you'll face in the random battles, but even this will change as you move on to different parts of the overworld map. On the whole, they get 19 out of 20. Audio, by the same token, is simply fantastic. Again, just a couple of times where I felt the music needed to really hit home what was happening on screen. It also scores 19 out of 20. Octopath Traveler 0 costs £49.99 and regional equivalents are on your screen now. It's nice to see a Switch 2 game of this size selling for a more traditional £50 as opposed to the $60 that we are starting to see creeping in for Switch 2 games, although there is a discrepancy in the exchange between regions. If you look, the US is paying $49.99, whereas Europe is paying €59.99. I don't like seeing this. I think there should be a much fairer spread across regions. If you're in North America, you're definitely getting a better deal. But if you are elsewhere in the world, I will still say that the price is fair. It's just a bit disconcerting seeing what other people are potentially paying. It's a big game though, and it definitely has a few difficulty spikes along the way. And as I said, for me, this is one of the best stories, if not in terms of writing per se, certainly in terms of theme and execution of that theme in making you really hate the villains that I've seen in an RPG, probably going back to the late Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games. Throw into that the fantastic visuals, and on the whole, value gets 18 out of 20. To conclude, it's actually quite nice to see just how fresh a third entry in a series can feel, especially a series that's only been around for a few years. 3 releases in some 7 or so years could start to feel like overkill, especially when they all use the same type of art style, but fair play to Square Enix, they do seem to find ways so far of refining both gameplay and the visuals to keep these games feeling fresh. A couple of minor niggles here and there, but on the whole this is a fantastic RPG and definitely worth picking up if you love the genre.
I have to be strong.
Are you ready?
Octopath Traveler 0 gets a SwitchUp score of 92%. So there you have it, there's my review of Octopath Traveler 0, really enjoying this one. Do let me know if you've played the others in the series, what you thought of them. Stick it all in the comment section below. Don't forget, if you're looking for eShop credit, you can use our website, switchup.gg, to get your eShop cards, and doing so will get you 5% of your purchase price back as cash back. And there's a link down there to PlayAsia. If you're looking to import any games, use our link and code, and you get yourself 5% off of your order from there. And we have our second channel, SwitchUp Extra, these days, where we do longer form gameplay videos and have a chat about the games we're playing. The most recent game that we played on there was Assassin's Creed Shadows. If you want to give that a watch, there'll be a card to it in the top right hand corner. Thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.